Good afternoon or evening, as the case may be. I'm Mark Evanier, and welcome to a panel called The Business of Cartoon Voices. Now, let me explain what this is. For about 20 years, I've been doing panels at the Comic-Con in San Diego and other conventions as well, where I get a bunch of voice actors together, and I bring them down, and we read scripts, and we answer funny questions, and they do funny voices, and people seem to enjoy the hell out of this. It used to be at some of these, I would take questions from the floor. And the questions always turned out to be, how do I get your job? And there was no time really to answer them adequately. There was also another problem that was haunting me at the time, which was that, and if you've already seen any of my panels, I'm always scolding about this. There are a lot of people who want to do cartoon voices. There are a lot of people who want to take money from people who want to do cartoon voices. There are some excellent coaches, people who teach very well. We've got two of them on this panel you're going to watch right now, and we'll mention some other ones, and we'll tell you how to maybe weed out the good ones from the bad ones. But there are a lot of people who spend a lot of money getting, in some cases, just the information we're going to give you in the next 2 hours. And it bothered me like hell. I would have people come to me, and a couple of parents saying, I just spent $8,000 on lessons for my child, who I love dearly, to try to become a cartoon voice actor. And I don't think they're anywhere near close to it at all. And I'd say, well, maybe you've got the wrong guy. There are bad teachers in this world. There's bad, whatever there's a way to make money, there's someone who does it dishonestly or ineptly. So we solved both problems, the problem with the questions at the cartoon voice panels and the problem of me feeling like I had to do something about the predatory voice coaches, by starting this panel called The Business of Cartoon Voices. And every year we do it at the San Diego Con, and I ask a couple of agents and a couple of actors to sit there and talk about their business, because as you will find if you get into this field, the people who do cartoon voices are very giving. They're very generous. They're usually very helpful for new talent, even when they aren't being paid to teach you. Most cartoon voice actors are very nice people, and they feel unthreatened by competition, because if they're good at what they do, they work a lot, it's something they love, and they would like to help other good people get into the field. So we do these panels, and we've had amazing results. We have actually had people who came to these panels, took notes, and are now working voice actors. In fact, two of them at least have been on the panel as instructors, teaching the kind of people who are now where they were a few years earlier. So that's what this is going to be about here. If you're going to participate in this, and if you're in the chat room, please only ask questions that are relevant to what we're talking about at the moment. We'll take general questions at the end. And please only ask questions that are of interest to everybody. Don't tell us about your life or your particular situation. Those questions are specific to you, and those questions do not help the mass of people who are watching this now or in the future. This video will be up on YouTube for a long time, and you can watch it again later and study it and maybe take notes later if you want. But this is very helpful, because I got together two of the best voice actors in the business, people who work all the time, people who also teach. And they were my first choice, the first names that came to mind of people who would help new people to understand what they do, people who are not frightened by the competition. And in the voice business right now, in Los Angeles at least, there are about 7 really good voiceover agencies. And I'll tell you a little later a way to tell the good ones from the bad ones. And a couple of them are not strong in animation. They're mostly promo agencies, people who do trailers and announcements and announcer type things. But there are 3 or 4 full service agencies that cover everything, including animation. And I was fortunate enough to get my first 2 picks here, 2 people who know more about this business than anyone I know of about booking talent. And they have wonderful clients who work often and work all the time. They are also the kind of agents that I love, who do more than take orders and negotiate contracts. They take personal interest in their clients, and they will probably have some stories about, and if they don't, I will tell them about going the extra distance, trying to help a client learn what they're doing, maybe help a client who's got a problem somehow that limits their marketability. Let me introduce you to these people. This is the best panel I think I could have assembled for this thing today here. Here they are. I'm in box 1. In box 2 is a fine actress, Miss Debi Derryberry, whose voice you hear all the time. And by the way, if you're watching this panel, you probably should know who Debi Derryberry and Bob Bergen are before you tune in here. But we'll have them summarize what they've done anyway. You should know who all the top working voice people are, because when you are learning about the business, you have to learn from the people who are already doing it. In box 3, we have Mr. Paul Doherty. One of the top agencies in this town is called C.E.S.D. It stands for Cunningham, Escott, Selvin, and Doherty. He's the Doherty, and he's been doing this for longer than he probably would like me to mention. And he has represented some of the best people in this business, and a lot of what I know about how the business works, I learned from Paul. He's a very wonderful agent. If I were a voice person, I would want to have an agent as good as the two we've got here. Next, box 4 is Mr. Bob Bergen. Bob is the voice of Porky Pig, and you may notice that his internet is stuttering a little bit today. We'll have to deal with that. Bob is also one of the smartest people I know when it comes to discussing the industry. He teaches, and we'll have him talk about that too. He's one of the best teachers, as Debi is also, but Bob also works with the TV Academy a lot. Maybe we'll even get a little bit into talking about how you win an Emmy for voice acting, the history of that. And he does. Bob, are you still doing Ask the Pig? Bob, can you hear me?
I do indeed. You hear me?
Yes. Are you still doing Ask the Pig occasionally? Good. Bob does this thing
every once in a while, you know.
Yeah, he does a
every once in a while
a Q&A on Facebook that is the way I like these panels to be: pragmatic, honest, hands-on advice from someone who is working in the field every day. And then in the box 5, we have Cynthia McLean. One of the top agencies is Sutton Barth Evanier, SBV Talent. Cynthia is the agent who handles animation. Cynthia, what else do you handle besides animation there?
Yeah, well, I supervise the commercial department and the interactive department. So commercial, animation, interactive. We have an agent that runs the commercial department, and we have an agent that runs the interactive department. But you know, I'm the boss. So my hands-on is animation.
Yeah, Cynthia is an amazing agent. A couple of times when I have booked talent for shows I've directed, she has bent over backwards to help me sell the client to the network, to get network approvals. And she understands my problem as a person who books talent. She understands the problems of the clients, and she's I can't tell you how many times I've heard her clients talk about, well, Cynthia told me to do this and she was right about that. Cynthia told me that. She is much beloved by the people she represents, and some of them she's represented for a long time. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Cynthia, for joining us on this, and I hope we don't inundate you with too many questions. Briefly, Paul, could you tell me what Cunningham represents, C.E.S.D. represents, besides just cartoon voices? What other departments do you have?
Well, like Cynthia's agency, we have in voiceover, for commercial voiceover, promo trailer narration that you mentioned earlier, Mark, and of course, interactive gaming. We have in the on-camera area for those who do commercials, those who work in theatrical business, and we have a very large print department. Those are the primary businesses here.
You have a puppet department, don't you?
Well, thank you. And Pat Brady would kill me for not having remembered or not having mentioned that. Pat Brady, who back in 2002 brought us puppeteering. It's a very active area led by Pat, who also is the co-head of animation with Kathy Lizio.
Okay. Are you representing people for print work these days?
Carol Scott, who is our longest serving employee, 45 years, is in charge of the print department. And bless her heart, this lady can book peasants in the plague. She's still busy, despite what we're going through. You think she was in voiceover.
The only thing I don't like about C.E.S.D. is they don't do their Christmas parties anymore. They used to have these great Christmas parties.
You know, we were talking about that because being in this building every day here in West LA or Westwood, it's a marble building, very classy, built in the 90s. but it is a marble tomb right now. And all I do is think about those parties we used to have out in the lobby here.
Well,
We missed
the parties were wonderful. I used to go to them, and they would be full of old character actors
That's right.
and young models. But my two favorite things in the world. And I remember one. It was like the day before Christmas, and Paul was running around trying to find some actors who would do a paid auditions on Christmas Day for an ad campaign that had to start the day after Christmas. They were literally paying people to audition on Christmas Day, and it was like audition in the morning. And we lost Bob for a second here. He will be back, I hope. Audition in the morning, record the commercial in the afternoon if you're the one they select, and all through the party, everybody else is passing around hors d'oeuvres, and Paul is running around trying to asking his clients, will you audition? Will you take time tomorrow on Christmas Day to come in and audition?
We've always figured that voiceover is non-sectarian, so 24/7, and you had plenty of people available, as I recall, too, ready to do it.
Yeah, Paul, how many roughly submissions does Cunningham get a week? And can you break them down in two categories: people who come in cold or people who are recommended to you?
Well, boy, it's hard to say the exact number. People coming in cold. I mean, look, and Cynthia knows this as well as I do. Everyone on the planet Earth has two businesses: their own and voiceover. It used to be their own in showbiz, but now it's specifically their own in voiceover. So I'm sure the agents here get dozens of unsolicited demos and examples and desires a week. Referrals, that depends. They come from our clients, of course, from those who teach in town. One thing that certainly has occurred in this wonderful COVID world with pretty much the shutdown entirely of the theatrical business, which is now slowly opening up, although government keeps moving the goalposts every so often. So I'm hoping things really get going in September. But what has happened is that many of those who manage talent and talent who have very active TV and movie careers, the only game in town that it needs acting services for the most part has been voiceover, and specifically in animation and interactive and gaming. So we have been deluged with those recommendations from the management area, and I'm curious if Cynthia has probably gone through the same thing.
Cynthia, how many commissions do you think your agency gets a day?
Referrals. I like Paul. I don't know. Well, there's every day. We get them every day. Yes, managers are, of course, wanting to make their clients happy and give them activity, so they're trying to get them voiceover representation. And unsolicited, I don't know, because they don't make it to me. I have a good gatekeeper those don't get through to me because I don't consider unsolicited.
Yeah.
You have to be referred to me by somebody, and a referral isn't so-and-so told me that I should contact you. A referral is so-and-so, like Mark or Paul or Debbie or Bob, call me and say, well, Paul probably wouldn't do that, but you should see this person.
I'll talk to Rita.
Yes, this is true. So a referral genuinely means that the person who is referring the potential performer to me, knows SBB's style, and knows that this actor is right for us. So if someone refers that to me, then I know that it's a valuable referral. I know it has meat to it, substance to it. It's not just throw it at the wall and see if it sticks.
Okay. If I seem distracted, is because I am juggling the chat room and some technical stuff and a message on my iPhone, and the fact that Bob is having trouble hearing us at the moment. Not his fault. It's just a weird connection here, and I don't know how to fix it at this point.
Mark, can I chime in on that?
Sure. Yes.
On what Cynthia and Paul said.
Yes.
You're right. There's just a handful of agents in LA that are the top ones. Maybe 12, but certainly Paul and Cynthia are cream of the crop, along with the other few. And I coach a lot of people, and it takes a long time to get ready to be of that caliber. In my 30 years in this business, I've referred 2 people, because I know that those people who are looking for this type of agent must be able to compete with Bob and me and the other top tier VO actors. And Cynthia and Paul can't be bothered, not bothered. I don't mean that they do help some people's careers, but there's so many people, and it doesn't look good for me if I refer people that aren't ready, who aren't able to be chameleons and have their booth up and running and work this business professionally. Mm-hmm. So it is tough to get referrals. I mean, I'm sure you guys get them a lot, but I consider when I refer somebody, it has to be that they are really above everybody else.
Okay, now let me take a moment here. Bob, can you hear anything I'm saying right now? Apparently not.
About every 5th or 6th syllable.
Okay.
Maybe Debbie can type in what he says.
Well, no, here's what I want to try. Here's what I'm going to try. Bob, I am phoning you. Bob, I am phoning you. Answer your phone when I call you in a minute here if I find you.
I don't have my phone with me. I gotta go get my phone.
Go get your phone.
I put my phone in here because I didn't want it to ring. So hang on.
Go get your telephone. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay.
So this is a perfect example of what actors have to be able to do: is roll with the punches, adapt to the situation, deal with it. Happens all the time now with everyone at home, with all the technology and the electrical stuff that everyone's having to deal with. This stuff happens all the time.
Yes. And every studio has different requirements of how they want their virtual recording to go. Yeah. And so, I know Nickelodeon's low down, but maybe they're going to change it next time I record a Sony, and each engineer has their go-to thing.
I'm back. I have every phone I own.
Okay. You have a cell phone? What do you have? Landline or a cell phone?
Yeah, give your number out, Bob.
I got my cell phone and I got my home phone.
Have you tried logging in? Oh, no, hold on. Have you tried logging in on your cell phone to this? Have you tried calling?
No, but I can.
The link? Try that. Log off this and try logging in your cell phone.
All right, I'm going to try that. People, I'm a much better voiceover actor. Hang on.
Yes.
I'm going to try this.
No, Bob's booth, I can attest. His technical skills and booth are top notch. But when you're thrown a new piece of software like this StreamYard we're using, everything's different. And you have to just figure it out. I called Nickelodeon the other day and told the engineer how to solve a problem he was having because someone else told me how.
Just remember how befuddled Mel Blanc would be if he was trying to work these days. He wouldn't be able to do any of this.
He knew when to get out.
Okay. Let's see if we're going to find that. We're going to solve this. Folks, hold your questions for later. The ones you're not answering the questions. Asking the questions we're going to get into here. Hold on a minute here. A minute. Something interesting is about to happen here. Hello, Bob.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody. Hang on. Let me put my headphones. Hang on, Lord.
Yeah, stereo Bob Bergens, folks.
He shoots. He scores. So he just needs to unmute one of them.
Bob looks like a music video here now in progress.
Just unmute your phone, Bobby.
Oh no, I just need to get some little adapter thingy.
What a lovely home.
I know, you like it? See, this is what happens. Don't get a 3,000 square foot home, folks, and have the office on one side and your phone on the other.
Oh my God.
All right, hang on. This is gonna work, I think. I think this is gonna work. Hang on. That's a ceiling. Hang on, I'm almost there. I swear to God, I'm a very good voice actor. All right. Hang on. Now, that's a ceiling. How is this?
Much better. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you great. I'm going to turn this one off. I'm going to keep this one on.
Okay.
There we go.
Yay, we invented
God.
something here.
I'm exhausted.
Okay, Bob, you can rest for a second here. We'll get back we'll focus on you in a minute here.
Chardonnay, people. Chardonnay.
The people in the chat room are admiring your home. These type of things happen in recording sessions. Have you noticed, Debi, that frequently you record in a studio and the people there act like no one's ever recorded there before? They're running around putting up baffles and trying to figure out what to plug things in. I've never worked in a studio really where everything was set up the minute I walked in.
Well, because everything is different. Everybody's sound vibrates at a different frequency, and every job has different levels of emoting. And I think the engineers, it is new every time they do it. It's nice that we have our booths because it's set for me. It's short. The mic is my mic. And the headphones don't go down to my neck.
Okay, good. Now let me go back to my little notes here. Things I wanted to cover. Hold on here. I've lost the whole train of things. Okay, so both Cunningham and SBV get an awful lot of submissions. How many new clients do you take on in a year? Paul, Cynthia, how many new people might you take on as clients?
I don't know about Cynthia. I've never seen so many new people in my life because things have become, the demand is so diversified now for types of performers. I mean, ultimately the person has to deliver the performance and have the talent, but we've probably signed more people than we have in the last few years, just by virtue of what the market is demanding, and the fact that, as we both talked about before, every manager in the universe is coming out of the woodwork willing and nicely referring people to us because of the dry up in the theatrical business. Everybody's in voiceover now, but I really don't know the number. I know it's a lot more than usual.
Cynthia, how many does your agency take on in a year now?
Again, I don't do numbers. I mean, I do 10%, but I don't know, but a lot, especially like Paul was saying, really 3 things have converged at the same time. With COVID and the downward pressure on theatrical ability to earn a living, and with Black Lives Matter, and casting now has to be true to the character. People of color are getting jobs, which they should get. And so more and more people are entering who are able, like we had a breakdown the other day for someone who needed to speak Mohawk. Now that's very specific, and Lord knows when that'll come up again, but we're taking on more people who are more selective, whereas in the past, you really don't want to be selective. You want to have broad range. You want to be able to work in commercial and interactive and animation and do multiple characters, not in commercial, but you want to be able to do multiple characters. But we now are seeing that we do need to specialize. We need to have people, and hopefully they will grow into being able to do other things as well. So there's a lot of people, but also WME closed their voice department, and a lot of actors needed representation. So we're flooded with people looking for representation.
And that's true of WME, right? WME was the one who closed, right?
Yeah. With WME was William Morris.
Right.
Those things all are in our lap.
Yeah. A couple of people asked me if I was saying, Joyce Bennett just asked me if I was saying SBV or SPV. SBV, Sutton Barthenary. I'll mention this now, and we'll maybe mention it later. All of these, the good agencies, all the agencies have a website, and on the website you can see who their clients are, and you can listen to demos. This is a very valuable tool for you. If you want to know what the top voiceover agents are for animation, sit down and make a list of your favorite voice actors, the people you hear on many shows whose work you admire. Then you can look at, if you go to Google and you type in Bob Bergen agent or Debi Derryberry agent or whatever, it will tell you who their agent is. And you can go to the website, you can hear their demos, you can see who else the agency represents. The agency that you probably want to be with most is the agency that probably is representing all your favorite people at the moment, or at least that's a starting place for you. And you can hear all these different demos of people, some of whom you may not have ever heard of because they specialize in things other than animation. But you will get a sense of what a good demo is. You will get a sense of what a commercial demo is. And I don't mean commercial in that they're doing commercials. I mean something that helps sell the voice person. And we'll talk a little about what that involves. Debi, what percentage of your income comes from doing cartoons?
95%.
Really? Okay. What else have you done lately to make money with your voice besides cartoons?
Coaching. I do a lot of coaching because, as Cynthia and Paul both attested to, there's so many people wanting to get into voiceover because it's the only game in town right now that you can safely, do. And I like, the residuals still come in, but that's pretty much it. I audition probably 10 to 15 auditions a day. The booking rate is about 1 out of 200. So you got to love to audition, and you got to do it a lot because the numbers game is fiercer than ever. So mostly it's existing projects, sometimes new projects, and coaching.
Debi, we have Savannah Newton. Oh, excuse me, I had the wrong one there. Savannah Newton says, Debi is an amazing coach. You have an endorsement. And then Dottie Carter said, Debi coached by coach. Bob, what the percentage of your income is cartoons?
I would say over 60%, but I'm also going to say it just depends on what I'm doing at the moment and what's happening right now. I could go 3-4 months without booking a new series, and then all of a sudden I'm on 5 or 6 shows. Or I could be working on an animated feature for 2 or 3 years before it ever comes out. So it really just depends. I mean, there was a time when I was the voice of Disney Channel where I was there Monday through Friday, 8 hours a day. And I had to reinvent myself when it came to animation. So you kind of go where the work is.
Okay. What other things have you done that have made you with your voice that have made you substantial amounts of money?
Oh, other than animation?
Yeah.
Certainly promos. I've done promos for Disney Channel, for CW, for NBC. Radio imaging is an interesting aspect of the voiceover industry because you're on retainer, and it's a monthly retainer. And if you get yourself a dozen or so radio stations around the country, each one paying you about $500 a month, it could be really good money. Commercials are a little different than they used to be. We all remember the golden era of everything was Class A, and it would run for a couple of cycles, and you had your health insurance. But it's a little bit different today. So much of the work has gone non-union. That is a huge aspect and problem for those of us who make our living doing this and expect our health benefits and pension from it. Fortunately, animation is still primarily union, and that's because of celebrities. And it's because, for all intents and purposes, it is a scale business. So there still is some non-union animation, but for the most part, the mainstream animation has stayed union.
Well, you bring up the next topic here. Paul, how does C.E.S.D feel about non-union actors?
Well, I don't judge the book by its cover. It really depends upon what they're capable of doing. As I say to the agents here, today's non-union actor is tomorrow's union actor. No one was born in the union. So we would consider anybody for representation. In animation, we do not pursue non-union business, nor do we in interactive. Other areas, things have changed, but those 2 areas we haven't. However, again, I remind the agents all the time, there is absolutely no reason not to take someone on because they're not in the union. However, they may not be able to be submitted on everything immediately because this business is so fast that you want to make sure your casting or producers, if they only want a union performer, you don't want to run anybody in on them. They have to go through some bureaucracy to make the performer union. However, again, for anyone who's listening who aspires to be in voiceover, we don't hold that against anyone because, again, nobody's born in the union. There are ways for that to happen. But that's pretty much what we do.
Cynthia, how about SBV? How do you feel about non-union people?
At the door. Well, I want everybody to be in the union. I'm a staunch union person, and I'm married to an actor, and I know the benefits of being in the union. We will take on somebody who isn't in the union yet, and they'll get all the opportunities. As Paul was saying, sometimes you can't give someone an opportunity who isn't in the union yet because you know that the particular producer won't have the desire to do a Taft-Hartley. But what we will do is if we represent somebody who isn't in the union yet, next to their name on the slate when we submit their MP3, we'll put a TH next to their name. And that alerts the casting director or the producer that that person needs to be Taft-Hartley'd. That is a process that the producer fills out a form with the union and says, we have searched high and low to find the actor to do this role, and we cannot find it within the union membership. We would like to hire this person, and the union will grant them what's called a Taft-Hartley. And then once that happens, then the actor eventually becomes a must join, and that means they have to join for not the second job but the third job. All of these details you can learn on the union yourself. But like Paul, we don't hold it against somebody, but we expect them to do everything they possibly can to get in the union. And certainly if a casting director is listening to a union member who they know and a non-Taft-Hartley person who they don't know, and the auditions are equal, the union person is going to get the job. But if the person who needs to be Taft-Hartley'd is amazing, and it's like, wow, where's this person been hiding? We have to have this person. Then they are going to go through the process of a Taft-Hartley.
Yes, excellent. You just answered my next question. Thank you. That's very good. Good. Paul, Cynthia, how often have you gotten a call from a client that says, I really need a job. I got to make my SAG health insurance. Or how often have you heard from a client that has said, thank God I'm in the union. I just had this medical emergency in my family. And if I wasn't in the union, I'd be bankrupt or something.
Well, often, but unfortunately, that might be changing somewhat with what's going on, which probably Bob could address, or Derry, even Debi Derryberry, even better, because they're in the union. But yes, there are times that that has happened in terms of needing an extra job in order to make the medical. So we've come up with voice replacement, ADR session, if we can, something like that. We certainly try to do whatever we can for our people because we completely understand. And with there being so much competition and the fact that, as Bob and Debi will talk about, that things are going to get a little peculiar with the healthcare in the union, certainly starting in 2021.
Bob, you want something you want to say about that?
Yeah, there are some major adjustments in our pension and health plan. Some of them aren't as doom and gloom. Here, I would like to give everybody watching advice. Do not get your education on social media, because someone's going to post something that's wrong and it's going to go viral and it causes major chaos. Yeah, Paul's right. There are some major changes, one of which is that if you're a pension-taking senior, you can no longer use SAG-AFTRA as your copay. That said, you've only been able to use that as your copay for the last 3 years. Legacy SAG never allowed that. AFTRA did. But there are some really terrific options for our seniors taking pension. Bottom line is our entire country is in dire straits when it comes to our healthcare. The prices and the costs have skyrocketed. So we didn't want to lose our healthcare. We don't want to lose our pensions. So they had to make some drastic changes. Our own president, Gabrielle Carteris, will not be getting healthcare because of these changes. We have 2 trustees, 2 actors who are retired, who aren't getting their benefits. So this is a tough time for everybody, not just actors, but for everybody.
Okay. Debi, what do you want to add to that?
That was pretty thorough. I know that I was one to jump on the bandwagon to condemn this new change in the health plan. But after evaluating it and doing some reading and listening, I realized that we are in a tough spot in this country, in this climate, in this day, and something had to be done or we were going to lose it. Yeah, it's going to cost us a little more. Yes, I have to make a little less now, but some people have to make a lot more to qualify. The plan looks different. Bottom line, we're still going to have a plan. Whereas if we didn't implement some changes, it might just have to dissolve. And we don't want that.
Let me add one other thing about union actors. If you're in a position of casting, as I am occasionally, you frequently will get inundated with submissions. Every so often there's been a week when I suddenly got 80 submissions of demos for the fact that I was hiring one voice actor for one session. I mean, the applications were very numerous. The job openings were very small, and you have to weed through it. You have to somehow deal. If you are getting submissions, you have to deal with it. Years ago, I briefly was a story editor on a TV show called MacGyver, the original MacGyver. It was one of those jobs I had. I wish I had not taken. And our producer foolishly said in TV Guide one day, "We're always looking for good scripts." He meant we want the best writers in Hollywood to be working for us. People took that as, oh, I can stop working in this gas station and write a MacGyver. And we got more submissions than could be humanly read. I mean that literally. There was a room there, it was an empty office, and they just kept piling them in there. At one point, somebody said there were over 3,000 scripts in there, and there's no way to deal. And they were, if all of this, everybody on the staff had read 2 a day, the pile would not have gone down because they were arriving at a higher pace than that. So you have to cut things out. You cannot deal with all these submissions. So one of the very easiest ways people have is, I'm not going to look at non-union people. People don't say this out loud sometimes, but most people who get inundated with submissions will just say, look, if I just get rid of the non-union people, the remaining pile is still pretty daunting. I'll be lucky if I can get through that. Mm-hmm. So it is important, if you're going to be a professional, to be in the professional union. And it's not easy always to get in. Somebody has to believe in you. Someone has to give you a first job. I personally have a policy. I have given many voice actors their first job. I've given no one their second job. I'll give them a first job so they have a credit. A credit helps them a little bit to get another job. And then when they come back to me later and they've gotten 4 or 5 jobs and they're fully in the union, then I can consider them as regular talent. I don't know how else to do it. I don't know how to deal with the submission sometimes.
Well, hey, Mark,
I don't cast that many shows.
Mark, if I can jump in for a second, because I do, listen, 33 years of teaching, I can probably count on just under 2 hands the students where I was like, yep, they got the it factor. It's just a matter of time. Cynthia, I think you represent Max Middleton, don't you?
Yeah.
Max Middleton? Yeah, I mean, brilliant from the get-go. JP Carliak, brilliant from the get-go. There's a handful of people you're like, Misty Lee, brilliant from the get-go. But here's the thing. Nobody needs another Valley Girl. Nobody needs another little old man. Nobody needs a little kid voice. They need original characters. When people do a commercial demo or a promo demo, they're doing demos that reflect the market, the advertising market today, the networks today. People rarely think about that when they're doing their character demo. Are my characters relevant to today's marketplace? Am I relevant to what Christy Reed is casting on Cartoon Network, what Ivy Eisenberg is casting, what Colette Sunderman is casting? How is my FX choices different from Fox Primetime, Hulu, Amazon? You need to think of the product, the landscape, the demographics. It's not just how versatile you are, it's are you a brilliant actor and how you fit into today's animation landscape. Because if you, as Mark was saying, if you go to SBV's website, Atlas's website, C.E.S.D's website, that's what they don't need. They already represent that. And they're striving to get those actors work. You need to give them something that's more competitive than what they already have. But just keep in mind, as Mark was saying, There was a time that Debbie and I were not SAG or AFTRA or SAG-AFTRA. I mean, everybody has to start somewhere, but the cream floats to the top.
Yeah, years ago I cast a cartoon show for CBS called Mother Goose and Graham, and we needed someone to do a little old lady, a cute little old wicked old lady, Mother Goose, and I went to the top. I called Cynthia, I called Paul, they sent me over demos, I called a few other agencies, and I listened to maybe 250 demos. Every female voice demo had a little old lady on it, and of the 250, 247 were doing June Foray. Literally, it was an imitation of June Foray's witch, basically. And at that time, I could have hired June Foray. June Foray was working on some of the shows, and I didn't end up using some supporting characters. But I didn't need June Foray. I needed something different. And if you listen to the female demos then, they all had the same Valley Girl. They all had the same, dumb blonde character. They all had the same. One of the things about Debbie's demo, which I remember listening to, was that she was doing some voices that nobody else was doing. I remember listening to it a couple of years ago. I don't know if it's your current demo or not, Debbie, but I thought, wow, here's some unique voices. And you also find you get these demos from people who are doing Homer Simpson. That job is not open. Dan Castellaneta is fine. In fact, Dan is probably watching this at this moment. Hi, Dan. He's there. He's got the job. He ain't going anywhere for the time being. And if he suddenly decides to quit or leaves us, whatever, there'll be 90 guys already established in the business who will have Homer Simpson sound-alikes the next day. There's not a lot of call for sound like other people. When I get a demo, there's a guy who called me one time directly, and you shouldn't call voice casting people directly unless you have a personal connection with them. And he said, he noticed that I had a lot of the shows I was doing, I was casting Frank Welker and Greg Berger. And he said, I can do anything Frank Welker and Greg Berger can do. And he offered to pay me kickbacks if that's what it took to get a job, which right there tells you a very bad amateur. And I just wrote back to the guy and I said, if you can do anything Frank Welker and Greg Berger can do, you're going to have a hell of a career. You don't need to pay kickbacks, and I don't need you because I've got Frank Welker and Greg Berger. And I've never heard of the guy since this. And I have a feeling he couldn't do that. By the way, with this new trend towards trying to cast blacks to play do black voices and Asians to Asian voices, I think Frank Welker is going to be worried they're going to have to cast real parrots now to do some of his voices. But it's a great trend. I want to talk about that people now are casting racially correct, ethnically correct, gender correct voices now. We love that, and there's more opportunity now for black voices, as there should have been all along, and it means that we're going to hear less white voices coming out of black faces on cartoons, which sometimes is very sloppy because nobody tells the person designing the characters that this character is black or this character. We actually on Garfield a couple of times had very white voices coming out of black policemen on the show, which drove us nuts. It was all very wrong. Well, Cynthia, are you getting non-white voices? I forgot to phrase this. Are you getting submissions from non-white voices that are as versatile as some of the best Caucasian voice? I mean, are there people? Keep in mind that an awful lot of cartoon voicing is not black or white. You're doing pigeons, you're doing badgers, you're doing aliens and stuff like that. There's no race on those people, but maybe you need some orange actors or green ones. But are you finding that people? I guess I'm asking is, are you finding good, versatile, non-white actors? Are you getting people?
Sometimes it depends. I mean, we're lucky, and I know Cynthia's had certain clients too that we've had actors of color, certainly in the 35 years I've been in voiceover, who turn out to be able to do anything. I think a great example, and I think everyone here knows him, is Kevin Michael Richardson.
Exactly.
One of my favorite stories from I don't know how many years ago, when Kevin was cast through an agent we had here to do a sound-alike for Robert Stack, which he happened to do a very funny one. And this is when Stack was very popular. And the agent got a call from LA Studios from the producer and said, blah, blah, you sent me the wrong actor. No, I didn't send you the wrong actor. Is that Kevin Michael Richardson? Yeah, he says this is Kevin Michael Richardson, but this is Robert Stack. You sent me a black actor here. What are you talking about? And the agent said, let him do his job. And after an hour or so, he got a call from the producer, of course, with the punchline, okay, you were right, I'm sorry. And that's been a story I've told for years, because that's what voiceover is about. I've always thought voiceover is colorblind. And it's one of the things that I've liked the most about finding the voiceover business so many years ago, was that it didn't matter. It completely had to do with your ability. And in answer to your question, Mark, listen, I'm sure Cynthia and any other agent who is of any worth is giving opportunity to absolutely everybody. And yes, it depends. Some people have versatility, some don't. But it depends upon what the role is demanding. The role may not ask for a second voice. The role may strictly be somebody that matches the ethnicity or the preference of the individual. Then we're fine. Then we're covered. I mean, our job is to match what the marketplace wants, not what we want, what the market wants. Yeah. And again, I just go back to Kevin, and Kevin's not alone. All of you know of various actors, the diverse actors who've been in voiceover all these years. And,
Phil Lamar is wonderful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
These are are icons of our business, and it had absolutely nothing to do with what they look like. That's again the great thing about voiceover. Who cares what the fuck you look like? It's what your point of view is, and your acting ability.
Now, Paul, can you extend that and apply it to ageism, older actors?
You know, I never thought of it so much as ageism as it was more point of viewism, and this was more evident, far more evident, and I'd be curious if Cynthia would feel the same way in commercials or in other genres, not so much in animation. The great thing is we know in animation, and here we have Bob, who has one of the great iconic characters of all time that he voices, that and Debi has hers, that if you're able to sustain that character, you can pretty much do it until we're at your memorial. That is the marvelous thing about our trade. So I found it more as a point of viewism. And when there was anything where a particular actor graduated out of voiceover, it didn't really happen in animation. It certainly happened in commercial and in other genres, mainly due to the fact that the actor didn't have the point of view that was needed for the demographic the advertiser was trying to get to. Or they lost something in their read, or their instrument, aged. Some of us have been around for the generation that smoked a lot, and it caught up with a lot of people. So there you are from this end of the world.
Cynthia, how do you feel about this?
Well, I think we've covered two pieces of information here, then both are really interesting. The first one I think was, are we finding persons of color who have the skills that we need to cover what we're looking for? And I believe that SVB has always been colorblind. Like Paul's story, I have a similar one where the voice of a doll was being cast, and it happened that one of our Black actresses booked the job, and she went to the job, and the casting director called me pretty upset, saying, "You sent us a Black woman." Well, frankly, I didn't know what to say, because yeah, but she booked the role. She's what you wanted. The doll was white. So certainly that's an issue in our society, but it isn't an issue with agents. I think that that we all, I love the point of viewism. I had not heard that, and it's true. If you're right for the role, you're right for the role. However, I think now it's going to be a challenge for some of the white performers because they don't get to read for a person of color role, but I will put persons of color on a white role because we should, because there have been disadvantages and that they need to be overcome. So I guess, what's that called? Admissions, where you, what's the word? It's on the ballot right now. Gets you into college if you're a disadvantage.
Reparations?
No, it's not. It's the, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I can't think of the word either.
Yeah.
No,
Okay. So anyway,
affirmative action.
Affirmative action. Yes, I think that affirmative action is something that we have to do as well. It has been a challenge as agents to cast because so many of the studios have well-paid attorneys that put disclaimers on the bottom of every piece of copy or every description of a casting that we get, that we will cast no matter what your ethnicity, your sex, your blah, 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 blah. And they'll send you artwork so that you know, oh, that's an Asian boy. They won't tell you, they won't put it in print, but that's changed. I've noticed in the past, say, 2 weeks, they're finally, because I'll pick up the phone, I'll call and I say, I don't want to waste anybody's time. Tell me what you want. Because I want to give you what you need, and I don't want to waste my actor's time, and I certainly don't want to waste my booth director's time. So now, in the last 2 weeks, I'm so happy because they're literally telling us, this character is Asian, this character is Korean, this character is Mohawk, and that's what they want, and that's what they should get.
Okay, let me ask about one more kind of discrimination. A friend of mine was up for a major role on a series, and they did blind casting by the numbers. In other words, the people who were listening to the demos did not know the name of the person. They were picking voice number 1, voice number 2, whatever it was. And they picked, their first choice was voice number 14, let's say, which was this particular actor friend of mine. And they said, okay, who is it? And someone told them, and they said, that's out of curiosity, who was our next choice? And it turned out that was a celebrity, somebody who was famous from other venues. And they went, okay, we're going with the celebrity. They went with the person that was their second choice because that person was famous from other media.
Mm-hmm.
How often have you seen that happen lately?
It happens.
Well, that's marketing. Yeah, and it makes sense.
Well, do you think sometimes it's marketing, or that it's the people who are doing the show want to say, I worked with this famous person?
Well, you don't know, but most of it is marketing. Most of it is that the studio or the producer or the investor wants to be able to get their money back, and they want to be able to use the brand of the celebrity to market it. I wish that weren't true, because I think that there's so many scale actors who should be getting those roles because they're doing a better performance and they're much more interesting in the character, and there's no child in the world that knows whether that's a celebrity or not. So I don't like it that it's the fact, but it is the fact that marketing drives many, many casting choices, especially if the studio has on camera a theatrical, a television production end as well. They want to cross market between the animation series and the television series. And they also want the celebrity because the celebrity has a built-in social following. And so as soon as the show drops, the celebrity tweets about it, and there's instant free publicity. And it's in their contracts that when an actor gets a contract, even Debi and Bob too, their series contracts will have a full page almost of what the publicity rights that the studio is going to request. And they should, because one of the reasons that they're hiring Debi and Bob, not just because they're talented and should have the role, but because they will bring an audience to the show, built-in audience.
Well, Bob and Debi are becoming pretty famous now with their followings. because of social media and because of people becoming more aware of linking them to their characters. But I wonder, Bob, have you ever been called, or Debbie, have you ever been called in to replace a celebrity because they just couldn't hack it?
I have been asked to revoice celebrities in feature films because the director wasn't happy with their work. I have been asked to revoice non-celebrities for the same reason. I got to tell you guys, I know there's a lot of people in our peer group who get their panties in a bunch because of the celebrities that do the feature leads and whatever. I've never worried about it. First of all, I absolutely agree with what Cynthia is saying. It is marketing. Sometimes actors have to take off their actor hat and put on their producer hat and go, what's best for the possibility of box office or the chances of box office. So of course they're going to hire celebrities to play the leads on a Pixar film, but there's enough work. If people watch the end credits and you see those additional voices, there's plenty of work for everybody. And to invest a minute of your day with what's out of your hands, you have no control over, you've just wasted a minute where you could be much more proactive and productive in your career.
Yeah, Bob, we just got a question from the chat room, Bob. Is Bob no longer the voice of Poker Pig?
Of Poker Pig? Yes. No. I retired Poker Pig when I went to Gamblers Anonymous, but I am still doing Porky Pig, yes.
Mark, if I could jump in on that?
Sure, Debbie.
As I call it a rank and file voice actor, I just like to work. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the celebrities are going to allow the network to, market it. So yes, most of the principal roles that at one time we might have been able to audition for, those aren't really available to us anymore. But I think that the basic rank and file voiceover community, we're just a humble bunch. I don't think any of us are, star craved. I like what I do. Bob, we just like what we do. I will work for scale. That's what I work for, because this is what I do. The celebs will get the overscale. That's another thing. And one day when I make it to celeb status, maybe I'll see that game. But for now, it's auditions, it's working at scale. Sometimes if they can get me more, great. But it's a numbers game. And I don't know any of us normal voiceover actors who carry a bitterness about working for scale, because that's what we do.
Yeah.
But isn't it the truth though that in generally speaking, and there are exceptions to this, the celebrity who's getting over scale will do one series for 13 or 26 episodes, and that's all they're doing. And you're on 5 shows doing multiple episodes and multiple voices, so you probably are making more money in animation than that celebrity is.
Perhaps.
Well, furthermore, Mark, if I could take a thread from Bob via Cynthia on this about voice matching, that has turned into, certainly in the last 15 years, a wonderful revenue source for, as we say, rank and file actors. Mm-hmm. And I think for any of the beginners listening and watching us, in hawking us to represent you, it is not a terrible thing to know how versatile you are in doing impressions of contemporary celebrities, notable people on television shows. That is a nice cha-ching with residuals market. As Pat Brady, one of our agents, pointed out to me about, doing an hour ADR job as opposed to having to hang around 8 hours for one line on something else, and you get the same residuals. It's a great market for people, and it has been one of the benefits of the celebrity market coming along.
And by the way, the celebrities have also kept animation union. I mean, let's be honest. If it weren't for the celebrities, we would just be another one of the non-union contracts out there.
Yeah,
absolutely. And this is not just in animation. This is in trailers, in motion pictures themselves, television shows, commercials. We had a client for a very long time doing pickup lines for a celebrity in a credit card campaign. It was very lucrative for him at scale, and it wasn't even his official job. It was the celebrity. and of course with the celebrities anyway, it's become what parlor games now around the world to determine what celebrity is what voice where before looking at the billing on something.
There was a celebrity, and I won't mention the name, who a very successful on-camera actor who would not do his own ADR a year or two after the shoot because creatively he said he could not recreate that moment. And I just happened to be doing group ADR in one of his films, and the director said, "Can anybody match this?" I said, "I can try," and I did it. That producer talked to this actor's the next producer of his next film, and the next producer of his next film. I had a career doing all of this guy's ADR, usually just because of technical issues where it was an outdoor shoot and they needed a better sound. He just said he couldn't artistically do it. And I'm like, I can artistically do it, anything you want. So it became like a little industry secret that I was his voice when and by the way, I met him at a TV Academy event, and he A, knew, and B, thanked me because he just felt he could not do it.
That's great.
That's great. Anybody who wants to know about the skills it takes to do dialogue replacement and looping and dubbing for our actors, you might want to check out the second of the cartoon voice panels that we did online, where Jim Meskimen just went he stunned all the other actors there with all the different current celebrities he could do. He's quite amazing. He's one of your guys, Paul. He was quite a find.
He is a good guy.
Yeah.
Very, very talented man.
Mark,
Okay,
if I could jump in again.
Yes.
There are people who do impersonations and want to be a voice artist. Well, there are demos for animation, for commercial, for promo. There is a marketplace for impersonations, and that's a separate demo. I help people create their animation demos. Very seldom will I let them put the impression on the animation demo, but agents, I think, are willing to listen to your impersonation demo. But do know that impersonation can't just be you mimicking, that one line they do. It has to be able to do that impersonation through new text, new copy, new situations.
Yes, absolutely. Let me before I want to get into talking about demos and things like that. But we had a couple questions here. Ryan Cutter asked, "Do voice actors have to pay their agents for both their bookings and for their residuals?"
Yes.
My understanding is that they pay them for their bookings, and do they pay residuals over scale, or do they pay on residuals completely now?
Well,
In the Writers Guild, we only pay our agents on residuals that are negotiated above scale.
Well,
That's what the plus 10 is.
Animation is negotiated at plus 10 and has been for years, really since the 1970s. So yes, we do. Cynthia and I can say that in unison. Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
And by the way, I'm also happy to do it. I mean, people have to understand, for all intents and purposes, an agent works for you for free most of the time, unless you book a job. And they're submitting, they're whining, they're dining, they're pitching. It's tough. Only one actor can book it. So actors, if you book something, for God's sake, pay your agent commission.
Yes.
Thank you, Bob. Bob, bless you.
Here's a question that's probably best for Debi. Do they hire kids for child voices, and as they get older, they recast? Now, you do a lot of little boy voices and kid voices a lot. They don't want to necessarily hire children when they would rather hire someone like Debi than most children, because the children can't double, might not be as good at acting, and their voices might change.
Well, I'd like to say that you're absolutely right, but it's not currently. The climate is Disney Junior, or the little Disney shows and the young Nick shows, they are hiring children, and there are auditions that come through that they say no adults. So there's a bunch of that they do have the kids, and they will go ahead and recast. I know, I can't say the show, but they are recasting a principal on a show right now that was only kids. Yes, they're going to hit puberty and you're going to have to recast, but I guess they're willing to do it. I don't know why. I'm a much better, more versatile performer. There are shows where they don't mind. Certainly with the adult networks, with Netflix and Adult Swim, the little kids, they want adults to do it based on the, raunchy nature of the verbiage. But for the little kid shows, preschool, yes, they are hiring kids for that. So that market for me has dried up. When they say kid, I mean, you can ask Cynthia and Paul, they want the little kids. Even though I feel like I can do as good or better a job and for longer. Certainly with a show that is going to have a long lifespan, as a producer, I would think it makes more sense to hire an adult.
They recast. They
Yep.
recast when the boy's voice changes or the girl's voice. It may have been one of the first examples of casting the real thing in the part or among them, which is what we've encountered obviously lately culturally. But that sort of faded away. There still is the wonderful group of women who did wonderful boy and young girl voices. And
the Peanuts cartoons, used kids, and they went through a lot of them, which is why there's like 19 people around who used to be Charlie Brown over the years, that was the mode they wanted there. When I've directed shows where we had young kids, we always saw had a mix of real kids and people like Debi or Dick Beals was in a lot of them for a long time.
Very good.
Mark did voices when he was 70.
Well, Mark, did Lee Mendelsohn ever tell you why they chose that back when they started the Charlie Brown?
They wanted kids who didn't sound, who sounded innocent. They wanted innocent. That's what Charles Schulz wanted. Mm-hmm. He didn't want someone that sounded like they really were delivering a joke. He wanted voices that were authentic and real. He was thinking particularly in the original Charlie Brown Christmas of Linus doing the Bible reading. He thought that should be done with complete innocence and not with the kind of attitude that an adult might bring to the role. It was a creative choice, and it seems to have worked because Charlie Brown Christmas is the single most profitable half hour of television ever made in the history of mankind.
Really?
Yes, maybe one that's made more money than that.
Wow.
It's been shown that Lee just passed away last year. Lovely, one of best producer I ever worked for, probably, and he used to sell that to the network every year for a couple $1 million a rerun.
Wow.
We should all do one thing that's that profitable, and we love it.
Mark, I think it's important that we make a distinction in this conversation because we're speaking very general, and there's no rule. Every producer, every production has their own desire of how they want to go about casting. Some of them, Debi, it's correct, they only want kids. Some, I just got one yesterday that was kids or adults. Some adults only to play kids. So there's no rule. There's no they. There's multiple producers and business models of how they are going to approach their show, and it's going to come back again. Some of it, you're not going to like it, but it is true. And this is the business. Is marketing, because if they're going to be doing publicity and there's going to be a red carpet and the actors, the leads of the animated series are going to be on the red carpet, and it turns out that there is an adult as the child, that doesn't look good. So yes, many times they do want a real child, and they know that going in, that at some point, if it's a successful show and it gets season 3 or whatever it is, they will have to recast. I know that Paul and our agencies have had that conversation where we've had to call the parent and tell them that their child is no longer going to be doing the show, and it's heartbreaking, but often by then the child doesn't want to do it, because especially if the child is a boy, they've gone past it. They want to go out and play with their friends, and their voices change. They're no longer enjoying it. It's no longer the fun thing that it was when they first started. So it may be a win-win. I don't, I mean, again, there is no rule. There are, for every show, there are differences.
Good point.
It is true, as that you're so right, Cynthia, about that with the boys, how many times that's happened. Where it's sort of, You listen to them one day and they sound like I Love Lucy, and then the next week they sound like Lucy in the Lucy Show. And the voice dropped 8 octaves.
Yeah. Yeah. And their interest dropped too. You know, they've moved on.
Correct.
On the Garfield show, I used to use a lot of older actors. I did famously a session once where we had 4 actors in wheelchairs, and what we found was that the older actors were really wonderfully good, and if you just pitch them up a little bit, so a little tweak, a little dial on the phone, they sounded just like their old selves. And I think they have also tried the opposite, where they've dealt with young actors whose voices have changed, and they've tried to pitch them, up. And anyway, but still, there is a lifespan, a limited lifespan, shelf life for young voices on continuing characters. I want to get into demos here because we have a lot of questions about them. Paul and Cynthia, answer me this question. What is the fastest, in terms of number of seconds, you've ever listened to a demo and said, I want to represent this person?
Oh, God, I'd say 1 to 5 seconds. We used to say here, starting with commercial demos, and this is a long time ago, that it doesn't matter what you do after the first 10 seconds. The person's either tuned out or they want to hire you. It's one or the other. Animation may be a little longer, but for the most part, at least my agents have told me to stick to around a minute, because again, the people are going to start losing interest. And I think that goes to what Debi said when it comes to impressions about making a separate demo. So, so many demos for years, especially those of us who are veterans in this business, have remembered the era of a voice demo being literally the museum of voiceover, where it's just listening to every aspect of the person's career, life, and who the hell is going to sit through this 10-minute thing? And we're dealing with a marketplace that doesn't listen that long.
I think it's important to remember for the people asking that question, a demo is a tool that we use to sell the performer to the casting director or the producer. So when a demo is being produced, that is what the person needs to be thinking about. Not an agent. Yeah, we need a demo. We need a demo to sell you. We need a demo to pitch you. And if you're talking about how long will I listen to a demo to decide if I want to represent that person, that's a very different situation than if I represent the person and they're making a new demo and I'm listening through it to pinpoint whether I think that this is marketable to the current casting situation. Which goes back to our point that you need to know, what is Disney doing? What is Netflix doing? You have to know the vibe of the different studios so that when you make your demo, that your characters that you're bringing to it are marketable characters. But if I'm listening to a demo that's a referral, it's a wonderful referral, please listen to this person's demo, I will listen to the whole demo if it's a wonderful referral, because a demo might have been produced under bad advice, and it doesn't mean that it's a reflection of the performer's ability. But if it's just demo, gotta listen, you get maybe 5 seconds of my time. And if that 5 seconds says, hi, my name is Cynthia McLean, well, I'm not going to listen any further because you've just wasted 2 seconds of my time. So it needs to be your best money selling voice in your opinion. Now that might be your natural speaking voice, or that might be a unique character voice that you don't think anybody else has ever done. There's no rule about that. Some people think that it has to be a character voice. Some people think it needs to be your signature sound. So 5 seconds. That's as much as you're maybe going to get.
How often do you listen to someone's demo, decide you want to represent them, and say to them, okay, the first thing we're going to do is remake your demo?
Never. I would never say that to an actor. I would never say that to an actor. I would respectfully talk to them about their demo and talk about whether that demo is going to serve the market that they're entering. But a demo is such a personal thing to say that to an actor. I would never do that.
To change a demo, you need at that point to be representing them, or unless it's somebody referred by a friend.
No, but I mean, you say this. You showed me a lot of talent, but this is not the kind of demo I need to sell you.
Well, that can happen, and you'll talk to your client about that, about recutting it, or maybe even doing something within the agency to make it more user friendly. That depends, upon the actor and your relationship with them.
And
I
Mark,
had an ADR coordinator call me a few months ago and said, I want to sell your demo to this producer. There's no newscaster on the animation portion.
Mm-hmm.
So it was difficult for her, and it happened more than once. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was instructed that it would be more sellable if I had this particular voice on there, which I appreciated and I put on there. So hopefully it's more sellable. But with the change in climate comes the different changes in the voices that they want to hear.
Yeah.
and if Mark, if I may for a second,
Yes.
we were talking about, Cynthia was talking about referrals. I always tell people, if you haven't been in this business long enough, if you haven't rubbed elbows with impressive referrals, perhaps you're not ready for an agent, because second chances are pretty tough. And if Cynthia were to get a demo that said referred by Colette Sunderman or referred by Christy Reed, that's going to hold a lot more weight than referred by a coach, because this is somebody who this agent has used to hire their talent and can use to hire this talent.
Mm-hmm.
The body of the demo, you don't want to just be spewing voices. You want your characters not just saying, you want them doing. It's called voice acting for a reason. You've got to show off your acting range. Each segment, the character should have an adjustment in their intent. So the listener is not just as drawn in, but it also shows your acting range. The scene partners aren't there, but you're still reacting to your scene partners on the demo. Same thing goes for your voiceover auditions. Oftentimes they're just isolated lines. If you get a full script, it's a luxury. But if you just get wild lines, 80% of animation is in your imagination. So you've got to think about, who am I talking to? Where are we? What's my relationship? But the same choices must go into every character on your demo. Otherwise, you're just standing at the mic doing funny voices.
That's a good point. We have a couple of wannabe voice actors with no experience who have some stuff to say here. Somebody named D. Bradley Baker says, yes, it only takes a few seconds to show in a demo whether you can act. D has a fabulous website called iwannabeavoiceactor.com, which tells you a lot of valuable information. I recommend everybody go to it. And then another beginner with no credits here, Greg Berger, says, Paul Doherty was the first agent to make me understand that the way a career is built is one booking at a time. Be industrious, be patient, but not too patient, LOL. Be dependable, exceed expectation. Greg Berger is the most dependable voice actor I ever worked with in my life. He is amazing, and he sure proves that. I will remind you all that every major voice agency has a website. They have the demos on there of their major clients. You can go and hear anybody's demo you want. If there's a voice actor whose career you love, go and listen to his or her demo and ask yourself, look at what the first voice on each one is. Look at the one they put first. Look at what is there that establishes their professionalism and that establishes what is unique about them. Bob, what's the first voice on your demo?
The first voice on my demo is my own. It's a character with my own voice, because the second voice is the polar opposite. I wanted to show within 5-6 seconds I can go from this to something totally different. If somebody's never heard my work, if I can start here and then go here, I probably have a lot in between.
Yeah. Debi, what's the first voice on your demo?
I don't remember. I think it's a newscaster now. But I do, like Bob, I want to make sure that the range is there. So I do have my toddler next to the ancient granny.
Okay.
Yeah, that's important. I jump in, Mark. I need to say something.
Absolutely, yes.
Obviously, you can go to SVB's website and you can listen to the demos of our actors, but I have to say a hard truth that many of our busiest and most successful actors that you know, their demos are 20 or 30 years old. I'm not proud of that. I'm not happy about that. I wish that they were current, but it is the truth that there are some really old demos. There's two things that are very difficult to get an actor to do: update their demo and send me their contracts. So if you're watching this and you aspire to make me really happy, update your demo And after you do a session, send me your contract so I know if you did 2 or 3 characters. And
Here,
then
here, here, here.
If you go to the Cunningham website, you can hear Tim Conway's demo. It's still there. So,
We can't let go. We loved him too much.
um,
Is Brando still there too?
Can I
yes.
mention to the people watching that there's this wonderful little book called Voiceover Resource Guide, and on page 20, it comes out a couple times a year, and on page 22, it lists a lot of the voice agencies. And if you don't want to go one agent, go an actor, go to IMDb, and then figure out who reps them. They're kind of listed in here, and I find it a useful tool.
Who was the actor? Who was the
Rita
actor?
Benari, Mary Ellen Lord, Cynthia McLean. You're all right here.
Yes.
all right.
Who was the actor who was changing agents so much? He was actually at the same point on 4 of the 8 different agencies' websites under his demo. I forget who that was. There was someone who managed it at one point.
Well, that's it's Mark. It's funny you bring that up because since this commercial strike of 2000 and the emergence of the internet, we've had to deal with, especially those of us in the representation business, with the emergence of the one-stop shopping casting voiceover sites, which are not our site. That's not SPV's site or any of our competitors. It's those people who have entered the market, and I won't give any editorial comment, but that has provoked all kinds of demos and things being all over the place.
This is true.
Yeah.
Go back to websites a little bit, and you guys are bringing up so many wonderful points, and I could just commandeer this whole thing, because Debbie and Bob, what you're talking about voice matching and impersonations and all that, and so many of the actors have websites. I mean, yes, SBV has a website, but actors have websites, because that's where your singing demo belongs. That's where your impersonation demo belongs. That's where your theatrical reel demo belongs. All of that stuff, your website is the support for your career. And again, you don't do it for fun or for your amusement or for the fans. You do it because I can send a casting director to your website to learn so much more about you and to hear the Christopher Walken that you can do, or whatever you can do. And going back to ADR, the reason that Bob probably had that wonderful gig is because many times a celebrity doesn't have the time to do their ADR. It's not just that they don't have the creative juice or whatever it is, but they've moved on. Maybe they're in, not now, but they're in Europe, and they're working on a film, but the other movie has to get finished and they need to do their ADR, and so they need a voice match for that, or they need to fix a line so the movie to take out a swear word so it can play on an airplane. There's many reasons for that aspect of the business to exist.
What was the movie? I think it was there was a movie with Harvey Keitel and Jack Nicholson. I'm thinking it was The Fortune, and for the airline print, they had to redub the entire thing because there were so many swear words. So the entire airline print was Phil Hartman and Frank Welker redubbing the entire movie. And it was one of those Smokey and the Bandit 3. Henry Corden redubbed Jackie Gleason's every line. I think that was it's fascinating. Anyway, I will mention that the best website demos I have seen, I've mentioned this before, is a C.E.S.D client named Neil Ross, who's been on some of our voice panels. Neil has a fabulous demo, a set of demos on his site, neilross.com, and you will see amazing versatility. Oh, The Border. Thank you, Jack W. It was The Border, not The Fortune. The Border, right? And it will tell you what your competition is if you want to work in the fields Neil works in, because he's another absolutely wonderful, reliable person here. I want to take a quick question here. Bells22 asked us, what's the best thing to grab an agent's attention in a demo? I would guess the answer is something they haven't heard a million times before. Right? I mean, something unique.
Something unique, something saleable in this marketplace.
And that's the $1 million question, because there's no correct answer. Some of this is an intangible of course, we want to make money, so we're listening. Do we think this is a marketable person? Did this character walk off the page? Did this character come alive when I listened to it? That's the same thing I listen to for auditions. Did you pay attention in a script to the stage directions? Is the character sitting down, standing up, entering a room, waving a wand? What is the character doing? Because that action has to come out into the performance. I look at all scripts, even commercial scripts, as stage direction. You have to hunt for it, and that's where the skill and the professionalism comes in. But if I knew the answer to what is a successful demo, there would be no other agents. I would have everything. I'd know everything. But that's not true.
Here's a quick story. Years ago, I was writing a script for a primetime cartoon show that never made it to series. It was a pilot for Carlton, Your Doorman, based on the character from the Rhoda show. They made it. I worked on this pilot. It's on YouTube someplace, but I had very little on there. But I wrote what would have been episode 2 at the show on series. At that time, its producer and star Lorenzo Music, who was a guy who worked for MTM Studios, writing on the Mary Tyler Moore show, and he did the voice of Carlton the Doorman, was screwing around with an idea for a cartoon series, a sitcom, set in a animation studio. So at his request, I took him over to Hanna-Barbera, and I gave him a tour of the building. I was working for Hanna-Barbera at the time, and we took him down to Gordon Hunt's office. Gordon was the director then, and I introduced him. And Gordon knew who Lorenzo was, the voice of Carlton on the Rhoda show, and he said, "I want you to audition for something while you're here." And before we left the building, Lorenzo had been cast as a regular character on the Pac-Man cartoon show, because he was unique. He was the only guy around at that moment who sounded like that. And and he worked an awful lot. He was a SBV client, as I recall, and you probably got calls all over the place for work that they couldn't even fit into his schedule. There's a voice. He only had the one voice, but boy, was it commercial. Anyway, so Paul, you said that you've heard for 5 seconds, and you wanted to sign them as clients. What was in those 5 seconds that was so oppressive?
Something that was saleable in the market, and of course those 5 seconds engage the next 5 seconds, and then the next 5 seconds, and before you know it, you listen to the whole 2, 3, 4, 5, 10-minute demo. It was that engaging.
Okay.
It was sort of the bait on the hook. I took the hook and then just kept going.
Now, Debbie and Bob, when you teach, are you helping people make their demos?
Yeah.
I do not, but Debbie does.
Debbie, what do you tell people about what their demo has to be? Do you tell people? You tell them what you think their strongest voice is?
Yeah, because that's what it has to be. In general, if it's a woman, this glut of women in their 40s wanting to get into voiceover now is really a big thing, because that's what we can do. But in general, I want to be able to hear a mom and a granny and a few specific things, but they all have to be in that actor's wheelhouse. If that person does an accent, or if their first language is a different language, we want to put that in there. So we want their strengths there first, but each piece, I want to say, for a demo, just to keep it around a minute, I want 7 to 8 voices. I want 8 to 12 seconds per piece. I want each piece to have an arc, and I want each piece to be a different pacing, a different acting beat. I want there to be choreography to be able to be heard in each single performance. And what you first think is going to be your gem may just be a hanger dog. You might not like it at all. You may think that the thing that was just so easy for you, nothing, that might end up at the top of your demo. So the order when we're making it is not important. The acting beats and the strengths, and making sure that you can recreate them. Like I had one person come to me with a demo that somebody made for them, and it was a great demo. And I had them in my class. They couldn't recreate one single voice. I don't know how that person made the demo. I don't know how the person producing the demo would put their name to it, But for me, that actor has to be able to rise to the occasion and recreate each voice. And it's not easy. It takes a long time. People will call me and be like, can I just make my demo? Will an hour be okay? It takes weeks and months. You know, if you're ready, if you're a working voice actor, yes, I can crank out that demo quickly. But if you're just entering voiceover, even if you're changing from on camera to VO or stage to VO, or maybe going promo to animation, there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, after one of our Business of Cartoon Voices panels in San Diego, a kid came up to me and he said, I've got my demo. My demo is 6 minutes. And I said, well, nobody's going to listen to a 6-minute demo. He said, well, I found Paul Frees's demo on the web, and it was 6 minutes. And I said, you're not Paul Frees, and it's not 1964, by the way. And he said, I think I'm as versatile as Paul Frees. And I said, no, you're not. I don't have to listen to you to tell you're not as versatile. Nobody's as versatile. And then I also remember one time I was at I think the greatest voice actor of all time was Dawes Butler. And Dawes taught, and I was in his studio one time when he auditioned, because you had to audition to get to Dawes's class. He had to think you were really good. He auditioned someone, and at the end of the audition, he said, you are not a cartoon voice actor, you are a promo announcer. You really only have the one voice. And you should be doing commercials and promos, but you should not be trying. He said basically, you're not Mel Blanc, you're Gary Owens. And that was a big difference there. Bob, what do you tell your students about demos?
Do not do a demo till you're absolutely ready. And when they ask me, how do I know I'm ready? When you stop asking yourself that question, you will know. You're as confident about creating original characters as you are about brushing your teeth. It's instinct. You know, you're going to be competing with the big boys. When I was starting out, we didn't have the internet. And I used to call the talent agencies, and I would ask for their house reel. For people who don't know, an agent every 1 to 2 years would put together a giant house reel, which was about a minute of their top talent. And I would call the agents pretending to be a producer so I could take a listen to their house reels. Now, Paul was one of my first agents because Don Pitts was my first agent. And when I was with Don, I would still do this because I wanted to hear what the competition sounded like. Today, people have the internet. There is no excuse to not know how brilliant your demo has to be if you'd like to compete with the likes of SBV, C.E.S.D, DPN, Atlas. It's a very competitive business. But I'm telling you guys, everyone watching this, they hold auditions every single day that we all still do because, dang it, they're always looking for the next really, really good thing. But you want your demo, as Debbie was saying, you want contrasting energies, contrasting characters, contrasting intent next to each other. No exposition, music, or sound effects. Voice attached to voice. Don't let the listener know that you're moving on to the next character by a song or a sound effect. Let that contrasting character show off your versatility, not the producer. And when they're done listening, you should leave the listener asking for more. That would be a beating with that agent.
I am hearing strange clicks and weird sounds. I don't know if the rest of you are in my ear, and I think it's because D. Bradley Baker is still online here, and he says, "Don't pay someone to help you make a demo if you're not ready to make one that impresses. That is competitive." Same thing Bob just said. There's a perfect example of things. Debbie, when you help someone with their demo and they turn to you and say, "Now what do I do with this?" What do you tell them?
Sometimes I will give them an idea of a roadmap. I mean, I do a lot of this hand-holding and life coaching for voiceover actors because sometimes people are ready to play in the big leagues and sometimes there's not. And there is a place that you can sharpen your skills and still audition. Yeah, I don't know what that noise is either. I feel like there's like...
Yeah, it sounds like somebody typing.
It's not me. I even forgot the question.
Let's just assume it's D. Bradley Baker. Somehow has infiltrated this. All right.
So in what to do with your demo when you're done. If you're ready for an agent, like Bob said, you would know that ahead of time. But it's voiceover business. That means you need to work the business. You need to know who these people are. And sometimes I always want people to spend their money in the most productive way. And I will say, don't go performing for an agent or at these workshops until you're ready. Because what if they say, do you have your demo? And you go, no. You want to have your ducks in a row. So when you're ready for an agent, then you can make your demo, and you have to pursue the business on your own as well. And I do guide people here and there, but like I said, I've only referred 2 people in 30 years to agents, because that's your job. And they get auditions, they get demos every day. So they say when your name comes up a number of times, sometimes agents might go, oh, I've seen that name before. So you may have to resubmit every 6 to 8 weeks. If it's a real competitive demo and you are able to work in the business. So the whole business side, it's a whole other thing. And it's a lot of work. And everything's a lot of money and a lot of dedication. And personally, I love persistence. Sometimes people may just be a one-trick pony. But maybe that one-trick pony will work. Maybe their voice is right here. It's a helium voice. That's all they got. Well, there's a place for it. You just have to keep at it. I don't know if I answered the question, but it's fine.
It's fine.
I'd love to jump in. Can I?
Yes.
You guys are just such great setting it up. I will say that you don't have to have a demo to get an agent. You have to eventually have a demo if we represent you. You have to make a demo. But if you don't have one, and we've seen you at an improv or a sketch comedy show or one of these workshops that we do go to, and if you are brilliant and we say, oh my God, where has this person been? We want to help you develop your career. We will represent you. We will offer you a meeting, and we will offer you representation, and then help you, guide you, give you advice, send you to Bob or Debbie, or there are only a few people that I think I would put in the hands. And sometimes I'll send an actor to a coach to make their characters come alive, because these actors already have characters inside them that have to come out. They probably are born with these characters inside them, and they've just been dying for an avenue to get these characters out, whether it's through painting or stage work or whatever it is. And if they somehow funnel it into a voiceover career, then maybe work with a coach to figure out where those characters live in today's market, and then go work with a producer to help bring that together and maybe direct you into it. And I think the hardest thing for an actor who fits what I just described is finding the material, the words to say, the scenes, as Bob was saying, or Debbie, or maybe 12 seconds. You got to have words to say, and you can't say words that you can't use somebody else's script. So you have to create your own. And I have advice that I give, which I will not give because it's my advice. But you have to figure that out. And I think that's probably where somebody like a Bob or a Debbie could potentially be helpful. But I think it's really important when an actor is ready to make a demo that they guide that ship. If it's just if it's sort of a hobby and you're curious about it, then do it. But don't think, oh, I got to have the demo or I'll never get an agent, because that's not true.
On the second Cartoon Voices panel we did online, Greg Berger told a wonderful story about how he had made a demo, and it had been submitted to Hanna-Barbera, but no one had listened to it there. He was then in a play, and Gordon Hunt came to see it. Gordon was the head of voice directing for Hanna-Barbera at the time, and Gordon was so impressed with Greg on his on-stage performance. He said, saw him backstage afterwards, or saw him outside the theater, and said, why haven't we heard of you? And Greg, with a little chutzpah, said, well, you haven't listened to my demo. It's in the bottom of the pile. Could you move it to the top? And like 3 weeks later, Greg was doing guest voices on the Jetsons. And there have been a lot of voice people who have been discovered in the last decade or two in the Groundlings or other improv troupes, in acting in local in plays. Obviously, if you do a play these days, there's only a slight chance that someone who hires voices is going to come see it. But it does happen, and agents have found people in plays. They found people on TV shows sometimes. There's a lot of backdoor ways to show that you can do vocal things with some ability. All of the cartoon voice panels I've done online can be reached at my website, newsfromme.tv. Newsfromme.tv. If you go to that, you can find that on a bunch of other interview things I've also done. But there's 6 of them on there, and I recommend them for anyone because there's a lot of stories that. And you'll get to also see us have problems with Bob Bergen logging in on the video.
I'm consistent.
Yes, that's right. But Bob is always worth the difficulty for that. One of the things, now I want to talk a little bit. We're going to take some questions here to round this out, but I want to talk about reliability and professionalism. Without mentioning the person's name, I will tell this story that Paul called me one time and told me that a friend of mine who was a client of theirs, they were about to drop, not because he wasn't working, but because he was becoming very unprofessional in the sessions, and they didn't like the name of Cunningham being besmirched by representing someone who was a problem. Paul, you probably remember who this was, but you're not going to say his name.
Never in a million years.
Okay. So the agency, even though they were making a lot of money off this person, you decided that he just didn't represent the agency well. You didn't like that. How often has that happened with clients, and what is the problem? What is the?
It's very rare. It doesn't happen very much anymore. If anything, that's because there are so many people available. I mean, there are a lot of understudies out there right now. There was a diva aspect to this business. Certainly when I first came in back in 1985, there was a degree of it. There also was a great degree of wonderful camaraderie. I think with the emergence of so many different talent, you just, if anyone's a good agent, you need to sit your client down, talk to them, however you communicate to them, and explain to them that they can't say certain things to producers. They can't behave this way. Can
you talk a little bit more about what you mean by behave this way? You're talking about being late to sessions, by being rude, by not taking direction. What is the problem?
Well, I mean, the worst example, and it's probably the example you and I talked about, and this would have been when I was with another agency, so it was a very long time ago, because the actor had a drug problem. So his performance was excellent. His personality was something nobody wanted to see in the room, and it eventually killed him, and it damaged a wonderful career because he was a very talented person. Very often, it's we have talent who, when we were auditioning people in-house who could cause trouble with other actors in the lobby, and at times cause trouble at an audition, be impatient with a casting person when it was an audition at casting, not in-house. I mean, we go down a litany of bad behavior. It's just up to us, if we believe in the person, to have an adult conversation with them about change. And realizing that this is not that kind of business. You can't behave like that at all.
Cynthia, did you ever have a problem with a client who was not? There was not a problem with the client's talents, but with their behavior.
Yes, they're people. So, some human beings don't know how to behave properly, and most do. I have one story that has always stuck out for me because it was such a senseless loss of a job. It was a network job, and those are really lucrative, and everybody in on-air promo wants a network job. And this young lady had a show. She didn't have the network, but she had a successful show on a network. And I was the one who had to take the phone call from the producer saying that she would come up with cologne, and then the booth would smell like her after she left, and there was someone who had an allergy or problem with that. And I had to tell her this. And it wasn't me saying you can't wear cologne. It was me saying that I have been told that if you continue to, they won't hire you anymore. And her choice was to continue to wear the cologne. She went to work wearing the cologne, and that was her last. They fired her. I mean, they didn't fire her because it's a day job. On-air promo is for the most part a day job, but they no longer called her in. So in effect, they fired her. So there's that. We've also had, and this is so sad, we had an actor that we all believed in, and he had a beautiful voice, and he was wonderful. But his manager didn't understand our business, and she put up so many roadblocks to his career because she didn't understand the business. She didn't trust the business. She didn't trust that we knew what we were doing. So there would be an offer, and it wasn't what she thought the amount of money should be. And we knew that we had gotten the best deal we possibly could, but it wasn't good enough for her. So so many deals were blown as a result of the manager's interference that we had to let him go.
Okay. Bob and Debbie, have you ever seen really unprofessional conduct in a session?
Absolutely. And I have seen actors lose jobs or not continue with the job because everybody's replaceable. Look, nice goes a very long way. There are so many really, really talented people, and we're very fortunate. I think Paula and Cynthia both kind of touched upon this. Very few jerks in the voiceover world, but if a jerk pops up, they're replaceable. I'd also like to touch upon something else regarding the agents. An agent gets 10%, which means the actor does 90%. You've got to work your career 7 days a week. I work harder to stay where I'm at than I ever did to get here. Also, most actors will only communicate with their agent when they're complaining about something. For God's sake, thank you goes a long way. I will pop my agent a note after a really fun audition. No callback, no job, just that. Do you guys remember, what is that, the Mucinex booger that talks? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Oh, yes.
I was with C.E.S.D. at the time. And I popped whoever a note. I just auditioned for Phlegm, and that was the most fun audition I've ever had in my entire life. No booking. Just show your agent you're enjoying and appreciating, not just the damn Christmas gift. Hopefully they'll remember me in January. Do it in July. Just pop them a note and say thank you. You didn't have to send me this copy. I had fun. I had a great time.
I will say that SBV's clients are very grateful. We represent a great group of people who I feel valued every day. So that's one of the reasons I love my job, is that this is a people business. And I'm certain the same thing is true at C.E.S.D. Every agency, we have our own vibe. We have who we are at our core, and the performers that are with us and have been with us for a long time or aspire to be with us and are stay for a very long time, because there is a communication, there is a trust, there is a caring, we all know that we're a valued part of it. And Bob, you're correct, we do make 10%, but you actually make 100% because most of the deals are scale plus 10.
There you go. There you go.
And your job, obviously, we can't spend 10% of the day on you, because we have way too many clients to do that. But if we only earned 10% on a session, we couldn't be in business, because we have to pay the electricity and the rent and the staff. So of course we earn a commission on the residuals. Otherwise there's no point. There's no point in doing what we do. We have to be paid.
Let me ask a few quick questions here now as we near the end. We're in our last moments of this. Rob Burnett asks, with the advent of online accessibility, how important / prevalent is it to be physically located in California, New York, etc., to do VO work?
VO or animation?
Different.
Yeah,
right,
you can do VO anywhere.
Yep. VO anywhere.
This is a topic we all discussing among ourselves, because during the pandemic, people are working individually. Prior to this pandemic, my answer to that question would have been, I don't work with actors who can't come into the studio in LA. I like having everybody in the same room. And if I can get Frank Welker in that room, why can't I get you? Now we are all discussing how much the business is going to go back towards that when the pandemic is no longer a concern, when assuming that happens in our lifetimes. But I think that there are voice actors, I'm thinking of one in particular I know, who have thought they could move to another city and their careers disappeared when they moved out of Los Angeles.
Not in commercials, nor, well, the first group that moved out of town or were able to do work from out of town were promo people. It was as early as the late 80s that I remember Bo Weaver and another fellow were able to give quality work from their then studio in Colorado. That was really the beginning of all this. And you're right, Mark, in animation, that seemed to be the last thing. And it wasn't until COVID, where producers needed voices, that we had to work this out in terms of people working from home. As to whether that will continue, I mean, we'll see. I don't know if you have a greater perspective, Cynthia, on that, if that will continue.
Well, I think, like all aspects of business, the work is getting done. The content is being made. They have worked, the producers have figured it out. The actors have figured it out. The actors who want to continue to have a career have built their studios. Some of them kicking and screaming and not wanting to do it, but they've had to do it and have. And we have many people who do not live in California and have beautiful, viable animation careers. But they already had the career and then chose to make the move. So they're already a proven commodity where the producer, of course, is going to work with them. When COVID allows ensemble records again, then we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. But prior to COVID, if I was interested in actor, and I do represent some actors who don't live in California, but when they came to the meeting and we sat around our conference table and we talked about expectations, where do you see your career? What are you willing to do for it? Oh, you live in New York. Well, that means if I need you here tomorrow, you are here tomorrow. Your geography is never my problem. And they figure that out. And that's the only way I would do it, because animation is in LA. Callbacks are in LA. But with COVID, that is no longer true. Everybody's working from home. They don't know where you are. It's none of their business where you are.
A couple of people in the chat room have asked, do I have to have a home studio? I think today the answer is yes.
Oh, yes. Yes.
We don't know if we'll again see a time when that is not a necessity.
Well, really, I think that if someone is going to step up and be a voiceover professional, as I said about Bo Weaver starting this in 1987, 88, whenever it was, this is the deal. You have to have this. It's that simple. We can't do it any other way, and I think it's that way in COVID, and it will be that way post-COVID. You have to.
Yeah. We have a lot of questions about equipment. Debi, I think you know about this. What does it cost to set up a home studio that is practical what's the least you can get away with for setting up a home studio?
I'd say minimum of maybe $800 to $1,500 for the structure, $300 to $500 for a mic, $300 to $500. I mean, you can spend a lot more. I'm doing the minimum. So $15 for the setup, $500 for a mic, $300 for an interface, another couple hundred for the cords, and and then if you need your Source Connect, that's another $35 a month. So probably a couple grand, maybe at the very minimum. Unless you're a real handyman, you could do it less expensively. You can get used equipment. But it's not really cheap to set up, and the learning curve is extreme. And you also need a monitor for your booth, depending on what you need. Not cheap.
Okay, because and explain to them that it's got to be, the quality. Every studio has its own standards for quality, and they sometimes put you through the ringer, saying we're not happy with your acoustics, you're not happy with your microphone. because they want everything to match a certain standard that they have. And it may not be the same in another studio, with another studio.
You also have to budget to hire an engineer to either virtually walk or to come to your home to figure out where you need more padding, where your issue is. I had someone, the booth sounded terrible. They threw another blanket over it and moved it into the bedroom and they were golden. I had somebody else, mystery noise. They moved their booth because the window was reflecting. And you never know. You do have to hire your engineer and get your stack made. A stack is something that you put on your audition unit done that handles your specific condition or frequency and your specific flooring problem, your ceiling issue, and your airspace. Everybody's stack is different.
But we should point out that if you may not be ready for a home studio yet. If you're just starting to learn the business, if you're just starting to explore what you can do that with a laptop computer, $100 microphone, Audacity on your computer. You don't necessarily, this is for when you have to please buyers and clients. You can do a lot of learning without a broadcast quality home studio. Let me summarize here because we're running out of time here. Bob, you are teaching privates occasionally. You have not restored your regular class. What's the what's the wait list like for a Bob Bergen class now? It's like 4 years.
Yeah, it was 4 years when COVID hit, and it's longer now. And I couldn't even finish the last week of my winter session. I literally I don't know, maybe a month or two ago, started promoting that I'm doing privates. I only have time for maybe 1 or 2 a week. Debi does privates, and she's wonderful. But my schedule's nuts, so I really don't have the time to do as many as I'd like. But there are some terrific, as you said, there are some great coaches out there, and there are some charlatans out there. Talk to actors. Get advice from actors. Who did you study with? Who do you recommend?
You can reach most of your favorite cartoon voice actors some way through social media. And if you are thinking of signing with a coach and paying them a lot of money, it wouldn't be the dumbest thing to send a little note somehow to every voice actor you think you can contact and say, am I making a mistake by getting lessons from this person, or asking them who they'd recommend, and somebody will respond at some point. And if the response is I've never heard of this person, then you should be very wary. Does anybody want to name some other good voice coaches who are working these days? Is Charlie Adler teaching now?
I think Charlie is teaching. Mick Wingard is terrific.
Richard.
Richard Horvitz.
Fraley, Pat Fraley.
Bill Farmer, David Soboloff.
Absolutely, yes. Here's the thing: there are fewer animation coaches than there are commercial. But gosh, when I was studying, I had Dawes Butler for animation, and that was it. No, everyone else taught commercial.
Okay. All right, folks, we're going to wrap this up here. I want to thank these 4 people for taking the time for us to be with us here. We'll do another one of these days. Hopefully without all the strange clicking noises in the background. I think all of our dentures are going on us at this moment. Take a look at the cartoon voice actor panels I have on my website, because you'll see some other wonderful people giving a lot of wonderful talk in there, and you'll see them demonstrating their crafts. And check out websites. You have a lot of resources available to you. And as Bob was mentioning about, don't believe what you read on the internet about some of the union stuff. Don't necessarily believe everything you read about on the internet about any aspect of the voice business. Use some common sense. Look at it. Ask wherever you can experts. D. Bradley Baker's site is one great resource, and there's some others here. And I've seen here a whole bunch of wait a minute. Steve Blum. Here's some other names who are being mentioned. Steve Blum is teaching. D. Bradley Baker recommends Kathy Cavadini. Who else is teaching? I mentioned David Soboloff. Who else? Anybody else here? That's about all I see right here. I can't. We got so many questions popping up here. I can't get them all into. Anyway, this is the end of this panel will repeat on YouTube almost immediately and on my website. Please join us the next time we do one of these, and keep an eye on my website to tell you where it is. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Cynthia. And thank all of you people, Dee in the chat rooms, and all the other folks who asked questions. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of them. So long. Bye.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.